Hello and welcome to Qedit tutorial part number 18. Today we are going to cover how to put a custom symbol chat in your quest. In an earlier episode we discussed how the symbol chat object does not work in episode 2 or episode 4. Well, today we're going to cover how to put symbol chats in episode 2 and episode 4. So as you can see on my setup here, I have an Xbox setup, which is the one on the right, and I have a GameCube setup, which is the one on the left. Now, there's something unique about the way the game handles symbol chats. The endian is different for both versions. I'm going to cover which part of the symbol changes from one version to another a bit later, but I just want to kind of show you how this works first. So right now I actually have a floor panel 2 over here, and when I walk close to it I get the symbol chat that displays kind of like it wants one shield. So in order for this to work, there's also a invisible object on the floor here called a box detect. Basically what this does is it allows you to put have it detect a item on the floor in a specific spot, and it unlocks a switch or it does some other action if you do some scripting with it. In this particular instance, if we drop a shield, so let's go over here with the Xbox character and you'll see they get the same exact symbol. So if we drop my shield, the switch turns green, so it gets unlocked. So now if we walk into this symbol chat again, it has a different symbol. So the conditions for the box detect are met, but if we pick this shield back up, the switch will turn back off and it'll go back to the first symbol. Now Sega did use a similar logic in Max Attack 1, but they used the symbol chat object for that one specifically. The main difference is this is symbol chat through script versus the other ones are through objects and are just filling out parameters. So the difference between the one that Sega uses in episode 1 and this one is that it supports a third symbol chat. So the way you get a third symbol chat is it's done by door locks. So door 1 is basically dropping that shield. This is lock 2. So if I hit lock 2, it'll automatically jump to the third lock, which in this case is just Epic Face. Now this is set in a countdown timer. I'll go over that once we're looking at the file. This I have set for 15 seconds, so it just went off now. So if we go back into this, it displays the first one again. So this switch here will hit the third door lock. So if you hit the third door lock, now nothing displays because all the conditions are met, essentially. Basically it only shows the latest one, and being that I have the third one unlocked, it doesn't show anything. It will now though, because it's locked again because it's on a countdown timer. So let's show a bit of how this actually works in the script. Okay, so if we look at the Qedit page for this, there are 10 different registers that have to be used here. So this is quite a complex opcode. So you have your usual XYZ radius, and then you have your first lock, second lock, third lock, and then the hex of your symbol chats. As you can see here, I needed to do a version check. Get game version, we only discovered maybe 2 months ago, actually displays a different game version for Xbox We thought it would be 3, but it is not. So just to pull this up real quick, get game version gives you a different number for each version of the game. So Blueburst and Xbox both return a 4 for this. So we can use that to jump to a different function here. If version equals 3, then it jumps to these last 3, which are for GameCube. Before we get to that though, this opcode needs to go on the floor handler, or it needs to be called in a specific way to make sure you pretty much get it interacted with. So this one is on the floor handler, so it gets spawned immediately. Now, being that I have 6 different hex datas here, that's for the 3 symbol chats on both versions. Being that Xbox and GameCube have different endian, one's big and the other one's little, you need to do some hex conversion here. So if you look at my notes, the first 12 bytes of the symbol chat are flipped for each version. So just to create an example, the way you create a new symbol chat is you just right click on any space in the script and go to data, add symbol chat. It will actually save whatever you last opened. So in this case, I last looked at Epic Face, and if you hit OK, it'll actually create it here. It'll give it a function 0 label, which you'll just change to whatever you want it to be. Obviously, just remember to change it off of 0. But if you want to go and edit it, and you can make it whatever you want. So you have your 9 sounds here. You can change the face type, the color. These are your corners for the yes, no, yes, no. And you can obviously change their colors as well. This is if you want to flip it. Mirror up and down. And then you have all your face parts here. There's 12 face parts, and these are just sliders. The first one is left and right. The second one is up, down. Now, another nuance with this opcode is that there's hex data here, but it's not called in the traditional way. Like, for example, in the last episode, we had something called get NPC data, which has a function label in here for data. Let's say you have that hex here, and you delete this line that calls the hex. This hex data will become code. If I extend my window here a little bit, you can see I'm using this load unknown data and calling these functions that are full of data. These load unknown data are never actually getting called in the script. They're just there to make sure my text doesn't become code. But let's say I delete one of them. Let's say I delete 104, and now let's say I save. Now, if I were to go reload this, what happens to my script? See, 104 becomes all this code, and 105 is still here, luckily. I've had some instances where anything below this will get eaten. So you always want to use a precaution. This is not really a bug per se. This is just kind of how Qedit handles the script. So, but if this happens to you, if you forget to have an opcode that calls this as data, what you can do is just right click on the function number, change labeling as hex data. It'll ask you, do you want to continue in French? And now your data is back to the way it should be. And we can take a look at this. We can actually delete these, so we can actually look at the data. Because if you have those opcodes there, you can't actually look at the data here. So yeah, you can see this is round and red. These are the sounds. Maybe we'll have a future update where the sound is not just sound 1, 2, and 3, and 4. We'll have an actual name for them. And this is the second one. Oh. This is the on. Sound 4 is the sad sound. For whatever reason, I thought it was a different sound, but whatever. And then third one is epic face. This E8FF. E8 is the orange face, and FF is actually an overflow. So if you want your symbol to be silent, you just put the FF in there. That's a little trick that you can do. So one of the other things I want to cover that is unusual about this opcode is the door locks. R64, 65, and 66 are the door locks, but they're not at the end, which is how they typically are. They're kind of in the second upper byte. So this is lock 1, this is lock 2, this is lock 3. If you wanted to do like different locks, say like lock 100, lock 101, and lock 102, you would 64 is 100 in hex, so you would do 100, 101, and 102. That's what it would look like. You just got to keep in mind that you want to use values that you know. So if you need to pull out a hex calculator and say, hey, what's 100 in hex? Just type 100 and there you go. Additionally, you can just use the window here and do 100 and it'll give you 64, but then you're going to move that 64 to the second byte like we mentioned. So just keep that in mind. That is something unusual about the data for this opcode. One thing I do want to cover again is the bytes that get changed from GC to Xbox. Basically, you are only changing the first 12 bytes. So 100 and 103 are actually the same symbol, but only the first 12 bytes are different. So this 0400 actually becomes 00 and 04 on, this is the GameCube symbol. And then all the rest of these, the next 8 bytes literally just get swapped. So this is 5302 and this is 0253. They just get swapped. And then the last 4 bytes are the same. Everything else for the symbol chat is exactly the same. It's just the first 12 bytes. And I have that on here as an example. Something I forgot to mention is the box detect object. It has its own radius, so we use 10. Plate ID is just your switch ID, so in this case it's 1. Item type is 3, which in this case is shield. And amount, I wrote 0 is 1. Basically, if you have this as a 0, the player is required to drop 1 of whatever item you designate in this field here. So if we look at the box detect object here, 3 is shield. These are all the possible values that you can use in the item type. So you can pretty much make the player drop whatever you want. If you make them drop money, you can totally make them drop, let's say, like 50,000 Meseta. In this case, it would be 49,999. And it would be a 7 from Meseta. So you can make them drop 50,000 Meseta on the Switch for them to open it, which I actually used in a quest. Pretty interesting object if you want to make something different in your quest. Pretty straightforward too. And the countdown we went over in an earlier episode, but it's essentially 450 frames, which is 15 seconds. You put the switch ID you need, and I deactivated the sound effect in this because I didn't want it beeping. I wanted to save our ears. And it's the same thing for this one, just switch 2.
Even though the symbol chat object does work in episode 1, it could still be easier for you to work with the script version in episode 1. Has a limited number of symbols that it can call. So this method allows for infinite symbol creation.
Just to show it here, symbol chat object has 23 different ones that you can use. These are all the hex values. So while you have some options, 23 different symbol chats that are pre-made, pretty good, but you may want something more specific, and you may actually want to use it outside of episode 1. So using symbol chat object outside of episode 1 crashes you. So just keep that in mind. With all of that being said, that is all we're going to cover today. Thank you so much for joining us, and if you have questions, let us know. Take care.